I was happy for him. I didn't find out about Lisa.
This conversation you had face to face with him?
Yeah,
or?
yeah, it was in his room. And he had his laptop, just on his bed. I didn't find out about Lisa until after we had this conversation where we decided to all just come clean. And that was quite a conversation. Because I was never unfaithful, but there, when we started dating, that timeline around February. The reason I remember February is because he had told me in December, go date other people kind of thing. So I did. It was January 10th that I went on a date with my friend John for lunch. We just went out and had sushi. Nothing romantic happened.
Yeah.
We didn't hold hands. We didn't kiss. I think we hugged. Yeah. And I guess it was considered a date because he asked me and I accepted and he paid for it. And that was in Pasadena.
Yeah, if he pays for it, it's a date.
Yeah. That was in Pasadena, and the following evening I went out with my friend Abe, and he drinks. He just got like a Maker's Mark, I think is what is his drink, and I got cranberry juice, and we just talked forever about it. He talked about politics, which
One of these guys in the Marine Corps or something?
They're both in prepaid legal. John Dixon is not in prepaid legal anymore. He's moved on to other ventures.
No, but the Marine Corps, are they in the service at all?
No.
Okay.
Abe is he's a little bit older. He's just sort of businessman.
Okay.
Has a background in, I don't remember, production or something.
And this is during the time that you guys were broken up, or
This
still
was
kind of going
I'm
out?
sorry, this was before we started dating.
Okay.
The reason I say this is because he told me a few times, he told me during that conversation too, that he's like, you seem to have a very convenient timeline for when we started dating. Because I used to ask him, like, when did we actually start dating? Because I figured if we ever made it to a year, we might as well celebrate it. And he's like, I'm not really sure. And the reason I think it was February 2nd is because do you know of Chris and Sky Hughes? Okay. I used to spend a lot of time at their house, and they're a wonderful family. And Sky she's somebody that I really opened up to, and I told her a little bit how I just wasn't sure about Travis at the time, and I wasn't sure what was going on there, and she wrote in this long letter. Or she didn't write a letter, Travis wrote the letter, but she kind of got on his case, and they told me all kinds of things about Travis that I wasn't aware of.
What kind of stuff are you talking about?
They said if I don't get away from Travis, I'm going to become just like Deanna, which is his other ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Do you want to waste 6 years of your life waiting for him?
Because he can't commit.
He still tells Deanna, I love you, and I was like, what? And that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I truly believe he does love her still.
Oh, he does.
Travis had he's what you call a player. You know what that means.
Yeah.
He kind of
pulls
girls
to hurt
in,
anybody, though.
but he can't make a commitment. He portrays himself to be a certain way, but he's really not. Okay. He portrays himself to have a lot of money. He's not. He doesn't have a lot of money.
He's got a lot of things. He told me the first night that the first night that I met him, or it was the second night, it was at the MGM Grand. He invited me to this executive director banquet, and he was kind of talking about what his earnings were the last year and how he almost made his 6 figures and that kind of thing. And then he leans in and he goes, in this business you have to show off your money a little bit, and in prepaid legal it is. People want to see that you're actually being successful. So he's done a good job of that.
It's about making money.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so Chris and Sky were by the end of the conversation, they started calling me Deanna. And I was just like shocked. I didn't want to, the last thing I wanted.
How did you feel about that?
My biggest concern was losing respect in their eyes, because I really, really looked up to them. And I thought I would have laughed it off, and I thought it was kind of funny, but I feared inside that I was losing their respect. So when I talked to him next, I was like, what do I do? What do I say? And he ended up writing this long, long, long letter to Sky saying, I just got off the phone with a very reluctant to talk to me Jodi, And she wrote back saying something to the effect like, I wouldn't want my sister to date you. Why do you kiss Jodi in the dark and then act like you guys aren't even together in the daytime? Things like that.
That's a good statement, because that kind of sums up the relationship that you had with him. It seems like
Especially,
he liked you, he loved you. He wanted to be with you, but he was reluctant to make a commitment first off. And truly, he didn't think that you were marriage material. And I don't know why not. I mean, I see you. You're a wonderful girl. You're struggling. You're trying to make your way through life, and I don't see why you guys couldn't have made it.
I think we have very different philosophies on a lot of ways. We would argue about the dumbest things, and like he would just want me to admit that he was right, and I would happily do that.
Well, that's a man thing.
And I should have just known better and admitted it. I eventually learned how to argue with Travis, and it's
Talk
yes,
to my
Travis.
wife. She's like, okay, fine, you're right.
Yeah, eventually that's what I began to do with him. It's like the more I just agree with him, the sooner the argument gets over and the sooner we can make up. And the makeup was always great. But there were so many times where I just couldn't wrap my mind around what he would. I could, but I would try to get him to do the same for me. Like there was a time when I broke down on the way to LA once when I was going to watch Chris Hughes do a training. And this was January, mid-January maybe of 2007. And my car got a flat tire, so I had at the time roadside assistance because my car was still under warranty. And they went to take the car in to change the tire and realized that when they sold me the car, they didn't give me the wheel lock key.
Oh,
so
yeah.
For anti-theft, there was wheel locks, so I had to get a hotel room. I had to get my car towed. It was a big nightmare. And I was kind of hungry. It was dinner time. It was 7:38, and it was dark because it was January. And the tow truck guy said, there's a Denny's 2 blocks down here, and there's a Jack in the Box there, and he was driving me to the motel. I said, is there an IHOP around? Because I really like IHOP. He's like, yeah, but it's kind of like 5 miles back in the other direction. I was like, okay. He's like, I can drive you there if you want. And I was like, he's like this short Mexican guy, and he seemed really harmless, and I was like, okay. And he, and I asked him about his life, and he had a wife and kids, and so he wasn't flirting. Or he had a girlfriend or something, I don't remember.
Just trying to be nice to you.
Just being nice. And so I ended up telling him, and he didn't ever come on me or ever say anything inappropriate, and then he drove me back and dropped me off, and that was that. And I got to eat. And so I told that to Travis, and he didn't say anything at first, but it got back to Sky, and Sky was like, why didn't you call me? And then I think eventually that was used against me to establish a pattern that I do weird things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we had arguments about a lot. Was he's like, I just think that.
So he was truly upset with you about that. He felt a little jealous, but
he told me once that he was a little bit jealous when he found out that I went on those dates. He's like, but I know we're not dating, and he's like, I guess I am a little bit jealous, but with these other incidences, he said it just concerns him.
Okay.
Because he thought that I would get myself into a situation where I'd get hurt because I have that sort of attitude, and I was really. Since I joined Prepaid, I've been really trying to break out of my bubble and do things that are a little uncomfortable as far as talking to people. And, I made a resolution this year to overcome a few fears that I have that I'm really scared of. So I think that by getting into that a little, then I can, overcome some of that. But he did act jealous, but he wouldn't say he was jealous. He would just say
but
he was
he would
concerned.
tell other people about it.
What do you mean?
Did he tell Sky Hughes?
Oh yeah, I guess it got.
Chris about
I
it?
may have told Sky about that.
But they probably had a conversation with him, and he probably voiced his opinion.
They had
on how
many
he didn't like it.
conversations. I know that him and Sky had a lot of fights and arguments, and and I was the root of that a lot of time. But I think all in all, they, especially more recently, they got along a lot better. I think she gave him a really hard time about our relationship, so that's one of the reasons he really wanted to keep it under wraps.
So, moving over to his trip to Cancun that he was going to, when did you first find out about that he was going with Mimi?
Oh, I found out about that at his memorial services on Monday. It was the Monday night memorial service.
So you didn't know that he was going to Cancun?
I knew he was going, yeah.
Okay. You didn't know he was taking Mimi?
I didn't know that. I think that's awesome, actually.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Mimi had called him a week or two before, and I told him, look, if you want to take somebody else, it's fine, but I have something to tell you. I don't look at you that way. I don't look at you as a boyfriend. If you want to be friends, we can be friends. And that really broke his heart.
I know. I mean, he didn't tell me that, but I found out from his bishop afterward when I talked to his bishop. And his bishop did say that Travis really took that one hard, and he said he took it to heart. And he said he realizes that it's, speaking from a bishop's perspective, he said it's because, Mimi is of a certain caliber when it comes to her spirituality, and Travis was just in another place.
He's struggling. And that's something he struggled with for a long time.
Well, I feel responsible for that partly.
Why do you feel responsible?
Because I had moved away, but I had participated with him in so many things that kept us both down spiritually for a long time. I mean, if I had just cut ties completely, I could probably be married right now. I could probably be working on my own family.
What kept you there?
Too.
What kept you to him? I don't understand.
Well, moving is expensive, for one. So once I was there, I was kind of stuck there.
But why do you continue to go back to him? You know what he wants. You know that it's not healthy. But yet you continue to go back. And it brings us to this point where we are now. Okay, I mean...
I guess I physically...
You keep saying you knew that it wasn't healthy, and you knew it was contributing to something that wasn't good.
And I think at the
but
time...
yet you guys continue to do it.
Yeah, and part of my perspective now has to do with the fact that I'm going through a repentance process that I've worked out with my bishop, and he's given me certain scriptures to read and ponder and pray about, and it brings me back to where I was prior to all that. I don't know how much I ever really was there as much as I am now, because even before I was baptized, even the 2 days before I was baptized, 4 days, it was on Wednesday and I was baptized on Sunday, before Thanksgiving, and it was just like Travis and I were making out, and that was prior to, we hadn't gone all the way at that point, but it was just too far. And I called him that evening and I said how it felt different. The first few times was like, hey, that was great, whatever. And then it just felt different this time, and it was right before I was about to be baptized, and I already had my interview, and so it was just different. And he said, well, yeah, he's like, I feel the same way, and I think that's the Spirit, telling us that or the other. And so I think that by driving the Spirit away so much, you just get into this pattern of I don't know, it was convenient. There was a couple times where I didn't answer his text messages, and he would send me little sad faces, or eventually he would wait, and then he would call, and then he would call again, and if I didn't answer, he'd call 3 times.
And obviously you guys kept this relationship hidden from everybody else, and because nobody really knew about it.
Well,
there were some people who I talked to and said, yeah, they continued to have a relationship even after they broke up. And there are others who were saying that you had become obsessive with him to the point to where you would go into his house when he wasn't there, or when you weren't invited, and he would talk to people saying, she just kind of showed up, and I don't want to tell her to leave, but I don't want her here.
Oh, must have been early on, because there were a couple times when we established a rule early on, just don't come over unless, he said, you can come over anytime, but I need to know first.
Yes.
He's like, you just never know.
Because you ran into somebody one time, right? Didn't you run into one of his ex-girlfriends as well, or was it Deanna that you ran into?
Oh yeah, well that was okay that I was there. He asked me to stay there and be with Napoleon, because that was during general conference in October of last year. He took a road trip with some friends from his church to Utah, and unless he's going to California, he pretty much leaves Napoleon at home, and so he needed someone to be there. And it's like I got full house privileges. I could sleep in the bed, I could eat food.
And I've talked to her, and she said that was kind of an unusual kind of situation. She didn't expect you to be there. She
didn't at all. And so at first I was like, did you give Deanna any flack over coming over unannounced? Because we had just set this rule. And he's like, I talked to her about it. He's like, but I'll tell you what, I was on the phone for 3 hours with her. She was freaking out that you were there. And I think the more people knew about us associating, the more stress we both got from it. And so it was just easier to try and keep it a secret